Exciting.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Weirdly Magical with Jen and Lou. And I am Lou, and I'm an astrologer and writer.
And I'm Jen, and I'm an Akashic healer and creator of the Illuminating Journey cards.
Cool. And in this episode of Weirdly Magical, we are going to talk about the energy of the solar eclipse that's on August the 11th at 2:57 a.m. Pacific, 3:57 a.m. Mountain, 5:57 a.m. Eastern, 10:57 a.m. in the UK, and anywhere else we'll have to look up for themselves. but we're not only going to talk about the eclipse, because there's a lot happening leading up to the eclipse and just afterwards. So I think we're going to kind of talk around the energies too. But I'm just going to kick off giving a little kind of rundown of kind of the makeup of the chart. Don't worry about having to remember it all. This is for those that are interested and know how the astrology works. So the eclipse itself is at 18 degrees of Leo on the 11th. And it's conjunct Pallas Athena at 17 degrees and Mercury retrograde at 14 degrees of Leo. The nodes are at 5 degrees of Leo on the eclipse, because an eclipse is always conjunct the moon's nodes. Happening around the eclipse, though, we have Mercury squares Jupiter 2 hours before the eclipse. Uranus turns retrograde on the 7th, so 4 days before the eclipse. So on the eclipse, we'll have 7 retrogrades if we include Chiron, which I do. And we have a T-square between Chiron, Saturn, and Venus that we'll also talk about. And we have Mars conjunct Black Moon Lilith at the 0 degree of Aquarius. And to top it all off, we have a finger of fate, or Yod, or finger of God, coming from Neptune in Pisces and Pluto in Capricorn, pointing directly at the eclipse itself. So there's an awful lot to talk about, and there's a couple of other things I'll mention as we go along. But I just want to say, before Jen comes on, my overall kind of impression of this eclipse is that this is one almighty awakening and break from the past, because it's a new moon solar eclipse, so it's a start. Jen will talk to the numbers, but I do know it's an 18-9, so it's kind of an ending and a beginning as well. A lot happening around the beginning degrees of a lot of signs, so it's an almighty kind of shift. There's a lot of healing, and with all the retrogrades, I think there's a lot of stuff going to come up from the past to be let go of as well. So that's my kind of overall impression. What about you, Jen?
Yes, interesting. So I'm using the Akashic records to kind of guide me, as well as using the numerology around this moon. And the first impression I had, or I'm receiving, is around this moon being very feminine. It's a very feminine energy coming in, even though we're going, well, it's fixed signs and it's Leo, right? It's happening in Leo. It feels like this feminine breakthrough, in a sense. This it's almost like the sensation of I've had enough. Like this wave of energy coming through. I've had enough of the illusion that being in control is the way to do things. So it's that kind of sweeping away the what's the word? The idea of how we use our minds to go, well, this is logical and this is logical, and of course it's like this, and this is what I see. So there's kind of this sweeping energy coming through that's breaking down old communication, like the way we've communicated with ourselves, the way we've communicated with others, and the way we've communicated with our environment, with source, with the earth, all of these different things, all being kind of pounded into powder at the same time. When I look at the numerology, it's fascinating. We're having this on the 11th of August, and we're in an 11 universal year. So 11 is this number that connects us to love and light. So it really is expanding our sense of self, opening us up to a new awareness of who we are, and allowing light into our communication, light into our brains, light into our hearts. So really is about standing on our own feet in a new way, because 2 is about building connections and community, but through honesty, through being truthful with who we are and what we see. So we're not pretending, like I'm pretending and I'm going to manipulate people to do what I want. No, this is what I need, and this is what I'm saying. This is what I see. This is what I'm willing to do. So that's the 11, and it's a double 11 because it's an 11 day and the 11 year.
Could I just say, add another 11 for you?
Yes.
Aquarius is the 11th sign.
Oh, yes. Very well. And of course, in London time, it's 11. It's almost 11, the time of the... So it's very interesting, right? There's all of this stuff. And the other interesting thing is about this 11 is that our year 2018, right, that the moon and sun are at 18 degrees. Now, 18 degrees is a very interesting number because it is about releasing the hold or the control of the ego over our world or our life. It's a letting go as well as a welcoming in this universal love, the connection to the people around us. So it's fascinating how these numbers keep repeating and reminding of us of what is true. What is the light we're bringing in? The truth is we are loved, we are connected, and so we can have the delusion, or we can allow these wounds, like you mentioned, with these wounds to heal, to be split off or broken. The idea that we're not connected or we're damaged or victims in some way. The universal date adds up to a 3. So because we're in a 19 universal month, so 2 plus 1 plus 8, which makes 11, plus 8, it gives us a 19 universal month. 1 and 9. So here we have the ones again, right? 1 and 9 make 10. So that gives us another 1. So it's a 19 month beginnings and endings, and this energy of the sun coming in and shining our light, being who we are without any excuses. And there's more I can say about this, but this is communication as well. I'll talk more about that later. But really, right now, this is about how we're communicating with what we have, like being present in the reality we see without being crushed by it. Like there's opportunity, but what are we willing to see? What are we willing to communicate with?
And I would kind of add, that Mars and Black Moon Lilith at the 0 degree of Aquarius. Mars is out of bounds and and retrograde.
I couldn't hear what you were saying. Yeah.
Sorry, Mars and Lilith still at the 0 degree of Aquarius. We're having some technical difficulties, by the way, people, because of all these retrogrades. So if one of us fades out, the other will make up for it. But it's just not much we can do about that. The universe, the energies are kind of a bit crazy at the moment. So electrics are fading in and out, and internets. Facebook was having problems this morning. In fact, I should tell you. It was it was kind of having majorly glitchy. But and my point was about the communications, because Aquarius is the higher mind, and we have this out of bounds and kind of, he's kind of rogue kind of energy of Mars retrograde at the 0 degree of Aquarius, about to go back into Capricorn, and Black Moon Lilith also at the 0 degree of Aquarius, having come just from Capricorn, and Capricorn really being kind of the patriarchy, the structures we've lived under, the rules we've been lived under, the shoulds we've lived under. It's kind of like this is breaking away from those rules. Pluto pointing at the eclipse, saying, here's the rules you don't need anymore, saying, here, dig them out and get rid of them.
Yes.
Neptune washing them away. It's like there's so much in this, and Chiron in Aries is really about healing the I am. I look at it, it's kind of saying, and I've been writing about it the last couple of days. It's just like it's time to stick a big middle finger up at the rules that don't fit you and say, screw you, I am who I am. I'm just going to follow my heart now.
Yes, absolutely, which is very much a Leo thing. Shining your light is actually about, the 19 is the number of the sun, as well as Leo. It's about the sun. It's about eclipsing the old and allowing what is true for you to come forward. And the only way you can do that is to be in rebellion with the dogma, with the kind of force feeding of all those shoulds. I do think it's fascinating that Mars and Lilith crossing paths at 0 degrees. There's a very feminine quality to Mars in this whole period we're going through.
Oh,
and
how funny that they discovered a lake, an underwater.
Oh, how
lake.
Interesting! Yes, indeed, exactly. And so this is the thing, is we tend to think of Mars as being, the god of war, and we have very structured things about how things are. And this is all teaching us that there are many ways to read things and to name things. They don't have to be what they've been. Being out of bounds, being in those zeros. The number 0 is such a beautiful number because it's about everything and nothing. It's the complete open space. It's the lake, if you want, or the great sea, or our breath. It's all about being in an expansive environment where we get to choose. And a lot of times people forget, Capricorn, even though it's the part of our institutions, it's also the she-goat. It's a feminine energy that is, so it can also go rogue or go, that's enough of these old rules. It's time to bring a new energy into right, of seeing, just like war. The idea of war is that we build up all our frustrations, and then we look at the group or someone across from us who doesn't agree with us, and we're like, okay, we're going to battle, and we're going to force you to agree with us, or we're going to kill you. And here we are in this moment where we are in this healing, and we're being called into love, and going, wait, I don't have to get the people across to agree with me, and I don't have to kill them either. There are other ways, and maybe the greatest way to be at war is to recognize what's true for you and go, I'm pulling back from needing someone else to agree with me. Yes. And remembering with this number, with the 9, a lot of this is egoic precepts about, if somebody else has something, or they come into my space, I won't have enough. And of course, that's an illusion. So the idea is, if I do my thing and I express what I want, there will be enough for all of us, because we'll find ways to share and make it work, or we will, we will find our own groups that we feel connected to, and a way of communicating in the round. So instead of just saying one person is this great leader who knows everything. We take turns to bring our wisdom into the world. And so we don't feel affronted. That's the egoic wounding, right? Is when we are affronted by the idea that, oh, somebody's taking something from me.
Mm. They can't take anything unless you let them, to be
Yeah,
honest.
right. But that's the illusion we've lived under, right?
But how interesting that Pallas Athena is right there, conjunct the eclipse, also being pointed at by that finger of fate or God as well. And you mentioned the deeply feminine side of all this, and it's showing up in so many ways. But she is almost like the female version of Mars in some way. In the myth, she is a warrior and things, but she uses this wisdom. She doesn't. She's about creative self-expression as well, and wise justice, not just this running after somebody with a spear kind of thing. but then Mars is expressing that side of him as well, because when I say Mars is out of bounds, that means he's acting out of character, out of the norm.
Yes.
That Mars does. So he's acting very differently right now. So there's, and when we say masculine, feminine, we don't mean men and women, by the way. And just to get that clear, neither, I know you don't mean that.
Yes, good point.
And, just in case anybody's a new listener and not to us talking, because, we all have the masculine and the feminine within each of us. But we're learning, or we're being called, invited, I would say, on the eclipse, to eclipse this old way of doing things, this very dry, controlling, kind of patriarchal way that we've been living under, and to create a new way. Yep.
Yes. And what's interesting about this being in August, and the whole idea of Leo, right? This idea that we have that Leo is a male sign, which isn't true, right? Male or female can be Leo, can be a ruler of their own life, ruler of their own light. Mm-hmm. And even Regulus, who is the king, the king energy, or the gatekeeper, mm-hmm. Is in Virgo now. The fixed sign is in Virgo. So there's a lot of flip-flopping, of changing of roles, where in August we always have Lammas, right, which is the celebration of the harvest. On the 7th of August this year is High Lammas, which is where we give gratitude. The number 18 also invites us to give gratitude and see what we have right now. So to see the beauty of what exists, instead of wishing and hoping, oh, if only it was different, my life would be better. If I had more money, if I had this great blah, 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 everything would be perfect. Those are all illusions. The whole point is being present now, is recognizing, wow, I am in an amazing experience right now. Mm. And the Lammas thing, as well as the Lammas thing, is the 15. When Leo hits the 15 degree, that's the gateway, or the opening, what they call the Lion's Gate, which is typically celebrated on the 8th of August. But they say between the 1st and the 8th of August is this opening that happens every year. And this year is it's highly potent, because it's bringing in these new energies.
And Uranus turns retrograde on that High Lammas then as well.
That's right. I was thinking that when you said that, how amazing, right? And so this is part of that, bringing in these new ideas. Pallas Athena, 17 degrees. This is the 8th, the number of immortality, bringing in her courage and her willingness to stand up for what she believes in, right? So kind of changing the idea of what it means to be at war. The other thing that's very interesting is that Mercury and what was it? Where's the square?
Jupiter,
right?
Yeah.
Both at 14 degrees. And of course, Jupiter's expanding what it touches. And Mercury is about communication, but it's in retrograde. So our communication is different. 14 is the number of communication. It's the number of putting ourselves out there and kind of declaring what is true for us. So there again, there's that 14, bringing in this idea of communicating out in the world of media. It's a media number, right? So it's about not just saying what we want, but saying it out loud out in the world. So being willing to stand for what we believe in.
And at a mundane level, I will say that I think it's highly likely there's going to be something very major in the news over this
Yes.
eclipse.
Absolutely, right?
Major.
It's got the news all over it, right? It was shocking, kind of a shocking shift.
And it's going to be something that's going to change how we think about things, I think.
Yes, it's a view opener, right? A view finder. This is about shifting our view. Like we're starting to actually be present with what it means to be human, like feeling our feelings instead of bottling them up or pretending they didn't really say that, or it's that same battle weary. We battle weary with trying to force people into agreeing with us because it doesn't work. So we don't want to be at war that way. Just like we're talking about Mars being out of bounds, the interesting thing is, right, is that it's, when we're in connection with our intuition, which ties into the 11, when we take action, so what we call inspired action or divine action, that's the Mars element, is bringing that into reality, and changing how we are in the world. This is all about changing, right, with the Capricorn and the Aries.
Absolutely. And then, that yard from Pluto in Capricorn and Neptune in Pisces, that's huge. It's also, and I can't remember there was another astrologer who wrote a post, and I think it's Eric Myers, his name is. Anyway, there's a lot of this about talking about bringing these bigger outer energies, the outer planets, into our heart, because really they've been recently discovered, and learning what they mean and how they work within us, because they work within us. So Pluto, about stepping into digging up our kind of root power, Kundalini power, it's about really digging deep into that. Neptune in Pisces is about really learning to trust our intuition and trust our faith, but not faith in a traditional religious view. It's faith more in the self and that we know things, And then Uranus turning retrograde, that's also faith in our higher mind. It's trusting that we can make these bigger connections and not just focus on our more lower mind, our human mind, the learning mind that we've learned in school. It's about seeing things differently and thinking differently, seeing the bigger picture.
Yes, and so fascinating listening to you talk, and I'm just reminded, and I know you mentioned this last time about Leo, the Kur is the heart, the heart of the lion is this idea of expanding our hearts and opening up to that idea of our intuition or our meeting of the minds. When we say meeting of the minds, we're not talking about the mental gymnastics, but it's the heart, right? The biggest brain is really in your heart, and so that aspect of speaking or living from your heart. And interesting, because this day on a universal level is a 3, right? I think I mentioned that, but 3 is the number of joy. So when we live through joy, then when whatever change comes, it doesn't topple us. It doesn't break down our system, because we're seeing life and we're living life through the eyes of joy, which doesn't mean you don't have bad things happen, bad experiences or whatever. Bad, I shouldn't say bad, like challenges. It doesn't like you don't have challenges, but you're supported because you're living through gratitude in your heart and an open mind, where you're like, I can be creative about the solutions. Like, this is some kind of puzzle that's coming to me. This is unexpected curve. How do I find an exciting different solution that works for me? So we're actually engaging the mind in a very different way. Instead of going to let me see what's logical, we're going through the heart and filtering it into what's exciting and adventurous about this challenge that's showing up in my world.
Yeah, and that's all very Leo as well. Joy is such a Leo word, and so is adventure. You know, Leo's quite a risk-taking sign, not in, you know, in a way of let's have fun with this and have some joy with this kind of risk, more than the gambling kind of risk, although it can represent that as well. I do want to mention as well that this eclipse is the last eclipse in this series with the nodes in Leo and Aquarius. So we've got that ending as well. So we do have echoes going back to the total eclipse last August the 21st, and the two eclipses then, and the two eclipses earlier this year, and no, that's it. Those last two eclipses. So particularly that total eclipse, I do want people to think back to the time around and after August the 21st, 2017. It was quite dramatic for me, I know that, but I was in the totality, luckily enough. But I think it was a memorable time, and it did literally eclipse some things for me. So there's going to be more of that.
You bring up a great point. Since this is the ending of this cycle, it's a huge sign of change, right?
Yeah.
And the aspect of that eclipse the whole, eclipsed the whole of America. Whether we were in the path and witnessed it, we're still affected by it.
Oh, for sure.
And the interesting thing is, right, I talked about the 14 of Mercury and Jupiter, but 1 and 4 is 5, and the nodes are at 5 degrees, and 5 is the number of freedom and adventure and change. So there's that eclipse, like you mentioned, of kind of this old way that we were stuck in a path, like there's nothing we can do. We're these helpless people just kind of being pushed along, and here we are experiencing, it's almost like the the heavens, or whatever you want to call it, are being like pulled open. And there's this light, like, oh, I didn't see this, this big hole around me that I can breathe deeper and see more. And it's like everything, when the light comes in, even when we think about in terms of Leo, the sun comes in, or the moon shining on something, we can often see what we have missed because of the darkness. And here on the opposite side, of course, the moon is in darkness when it's in the new moon. But it is definitely this energy of letting go of that, that kind of cover up where, oh, I didn't know there were all these holes that I could connect. I thought it was all closed up, right? It's like being able to burst through and remake this exciting energy, bringing back our childlike qualities. The playfulness is there for us to touch, and not get so caught up in the fear. Oh, I think our old way of doing things was like, if it was something unknown, it was scary.
Yeah.
But here we are on this path of the unknown, and we're still fine. We are. We're engaging more, right? Which is a childlike energy. We're learning to, wait, I'm not defeated by this. I'm emboldened. I'm seeing things I didn't see.
And there's a very mind opening as well as heart opening element to this whole eclipse. And I think you've kind of alluded to it, but I'm kind of just thinking a little bit about, and I'm not going to be specific, about some of the things that are happening politically in the world, not just the USA, but about how people feel that they're awakened and their minds are opened, but they're really just buying into another form of mind control, because but I think there's going to be a lot of people's kind of minds shattered and opened, and they go, oh, so none of it's true, but some of it's true in all of it, kind of. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
There's some truth in everything out there, but none of it's completely true. So stop thinking that you have to think that this side's true, or that this story's all true, or that this is all true, because nothing is right now all true. And there's a real element of mind opening with all this Uranus Aquarius energy and the Mercury being retrograde and squaring Jupiter as well. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something more around kind of the Me Too movement that comes out as well.
Oh, definitely. That's definitely going to come up. And certainly, if not in this month and through this kind of opening,
Mm.
definitely in September. But you know what's so interesting? You were talking about what came to mind is this idea of confinement, right? It's
Yes.
almost like we've been confined in a, some kind of madhouse, right?
Mm.
Where
And in different boxes, we all think our box is right.
exactly, right? And now it's kind of like the skies have opened, or this light is pouring in, and we're going like, wow, I had no idea there was all this stuff out there.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is I wanted to bring up this idea, the whole idea of Lammas as well, is this idea of first harvest, or the harvest is we are enjoying the fruits of our seeding, right? The first seeding. And so we can say that about that eclipse from last year, the great American eclipse. What's happening now is all of these layers are starting to peel back, and we're going, wait, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I see. It's that pulling away of the victim mindset of going, I don't know what to do. And then, oh, here's something new, right? That revelatory freedom. We are being freed from these crazy ideas that it has to be a certain way, that it looks a certain way, or that we can't let go of a certain story because that's defined us our whole lives.
There's a certain, and one of our mutual friends on Facebook, actually, Jennifer Seek.
Oh, yes.
She actually said there's a real feel of teenage rebellion.
I can't hear you.
She said there's a real feel of teenage rebellion in the air right now. That's what's happening on this eclipse as well. Because
yes,
because the Aquarius, it's like is rebellion, and Leo actually represents teenagers. So
that's right. Yes, yes. But I think this is the exciting thing is, and what's so interesting because of the Aquarian energy, which can go either way, right? Or the Capricornian, like they want us to believe a certain thing so they can control us.
Yeah.
And we're used to following orders. We're used to being sheep and just kind of going along. Oh, that's the way it's supposed to be. So there's that kind of excitement, but there's also that kind of, oh, like what's going on? Oh, I can choose. I can do something different. This is the freedom, because really, what is freedom? And those fives that are, we talked about that are all about freedom. Even the 9, the endings, the 19, the beginnings, this is freedom where we have challenges, but we get to experience them in a different way, and we can resist. I don't really, resist isn't my favorite word, but I think it's like resist or re-engage or new, that refreshing idea, like, oh, I've done it like this, but I can like we've got all these planets in retrograde, right? It's that kind of looking at this world. I think you said 9, which is another interesting, number, right? The endings and letting go, and this kind of re-looking at something and going, oh, that was, those assumptions are not what I want to take forward. Because, if we think about ourselves raising our vibration or raising our awareness, and we're going to a different place, how do we get there? We've got to just take a few things. We just can't lug along everything we have, right? Exactly. This new space. So we want to clear out so we can think more clearly.
And I just want to talk a little bit more quickly about the Mars and Aries energy, because I just thought I'd have a quick look. Something nudged my mind, and Mars, on the August the 21st eclipse last year, Mars was actually at 20 degrees of Leo, only 2 degrees away from where this eclipse is. And now, as I've mentioned, he's at that 0 Aquarius with Lilith, but he rules Aries. And here we have Chiron right at the beginning, and he's the maverick shaman healer kind of thing, right at the beginning of Aries. And Aries is, yes, it's the male, but it's also the I am. It's the kind of the toddler of the zodiac, if you like. If you think of a toddler, they're very elemental in the I am. They just, they just are. They just do what they want, and they just are. They haven't got all this stuff on them yet that kind of makes them think about everybody else first and all that kind of.
Yes, the restrictions.
Yes, exactly. And there's Chiron in this lovely T-square on this eclipse, opposing Venus, which is the archetypal feminine, in her own sign of Libra. And then they're both squaring Saturn in Capricorn. Those rules, again, it's like all the rules are being broken on this about what it is to be male, what it is to be female, what it is to be human, what it is to be me.
Yes. And what it is to be me out in the world, because Saturn rules our appearance in the world, or our fear around being insistent or consistent about that. Or how we look at time. Like, we've got all these weird ideas, like I don't have time to, be who I am. But the truth is that's all we have time for.
And with Mars being at that 0 degree of Aquarius, and we're moving into the age of Aquarius, it's just all, I feel it's kind of telling us where we're going. We're kind of being pushed into this more androgynous kind of era. That doesn't mean there won't be men and women still.
And that we can't choose who we have sex with.
Right? Exactly. But it does mean that we'll be less attached to the rules of what it is. I've actually just, one of my good friends has started this she did it for herself, but it's about, she calls it real, and it's about letting go of the societal constructs of, and it started with her teeth. Basically, a lot of her friends had braces, spent $5,000 or more on straightening teeth, and my friend doesn't have straight teeth, and she's like, well, why do we have to have straight teeth? And so it's all about that. It's all about leading to deep acceptance of who we are.
Exactly. And instead of conforming to someone else's rules, going, this is what I feel comfortable with. I feel comfortable with my shape. It's interesting, the teeth thing, because that's a Saturn thing, right?
Yes,
the teeth.
Exactly.
But how fascinating. And that's true. I do think this is a very exciting time, because we're moving between this kind of exuberance and embarrassment. The idea that, just like you're saying, this toddler energy where we're getting to explore things in a new way and be excited, and then fall down and fail and go, oh, it doesn't work like that. I got to get up and figure it out a different way. Like we're learning to walk in a different environment, which is very exciting, but it's also embarrassing, right? It's like, oh, I have to admit, like the thing with the teeth, like you're saying, right? Like, first it's the embarrassing, and then you go, well, what the fuck? I don't care. Right?
I mean, she might, you never know. If she decides to, if she explores it and decides to get braces, that's for her own reasons, that's different.
Yes.
But she's questioning why she might even be drawn to do it, Why do I have to have straight teeth? Because people say it looks better? I don't know.
And again, this is also the first house, the appearance, like how, and the 10th, how we appear in the world. Like when we're confined to appearing a certain way, then there is it takes away a lot of the kind of impulsive nature of our, natural form. Like I want to be exuberant about who I am, but you're telling me I need to be embarrassed because my teeth don't, they're not the right way, or my body isn't the right shape, or I'm an older woman, so I shouldn't enjoy my body because, I've got lumps and bumps or whatever.
And I should wear all these pull-up things that pull you in because my belly now sags over. Whatever it is. I've done some work with a mutual mentor of ours, and my superpower is deep acceptance, and I'm on a real kind of path to help people to be deeply accepting of who they are. Every bit of it, like whether their blotches and pockmarks are internal or external, or perceived blotches and pockmarks, I should say. You know,
Well,
it's
yes, absolutely.
who judges them as being
Well,
wrong.
the truth of the matter is we will always judge others because that's part of our makeup right now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's how we define or put people in their little categories. And that's a very typical human thing. But the bigger picture, when we're looking at the 9s and the 11s that are coming through, is this idea that we are all made of the same material. So underneath these kind of personalities or physical shapes, we're actually more alike than we're different. And so there's nothing wrong with having our own quirks, but we need to own it instead of being embarrassed. Like, oh, let me become more like you. Let's all become uniform.
I
Which I
know.
think is very interesting. This idea of the androgynous idea that a lot of us have, that being androgynous means we are uniform. And
Oh
I don't think that's true at all.
no, I
It's
don't.
like when we let go of this idea that we need to be uniform, like we're all these little soldiers.
Exactly.
Right?
And of course we're all going to judge. It's in our nature to judge, but it's when we turn that judgment against ourselves, I think, that's what I'm on against a bit of a mission about. Don't let other people's judgment of what you should do or look like or be like or whatever affect acceptance of who you are deep inside.
Yes, well, that's a good point, because the whole thing about judgment is, we all have free will. So if somebody wants to judge you, that's fine. But if you're living your life based on what you think other people are thinking,
Yes.
and I know I spent a lot of my life in that place,
Oh,
you
me
never
too.
come to terms. Like, you can never really have roots. You can never have a sense of self. You
Yeah.
can't trust yourself because all you're thinking about is, am I meeting the standards that somebody else has put out there for me?
Yeah.
And of course, you're never going to, because it's all in their head, or it's all in your head. It's an illusion.
Exactly.
So this is the point of coming to that acceptance of who you are. That's the higher energy. That's the way you live in this body. This is the container I have, which shouldn't stop you. Right? Here's that word, should. But you get to choose. Do you want that container to dictate who you are, or do you want to be like, I love my container?
Yes, exactly. And I love what's in the container too. I love my soul and spirit. I may realize that as long as you don't go around hurting people, nobody's suggesting that.
No, not at all.
It takes you back to the Wiccan Read, really, and I posted that in my article today. And do as you will, so long as you harm none. So however, I can't remember the exact wording. It's it's just be you, but just don't intentionally go out to hurt people, but don't let anybody else stop you either being you. So
And I think, yes, exactly. And that comes to the respect. It's recognizing that there's many of us bumping against each other in this environment. So we can still be us, but we can be respectful. We can be kind. We don't need to attack others or destroy them because they have a different opinion. We don't need to change the shape of who we are to meet their needs. We can just meet in the middle. I think this is the great thing to remember, that who we are as individuals, our individuality is the excitement of the universe expressing itself through us.
yes.
That's our juice. That's our jam. And the rest is we figure out how to kind of muddle along in groups because we want to be with other people, right? We want to get along with them. We love being with other people. So make it easy on ourselves. Like, we just accept. This is something that, I'm learning more and more. How do we accept the people around us for who they are, instead of criticizing them and judging them, just going, oh, so this is their big personality, and I'm just going to embrace that with love, and I don't have to think about or tell them about something they need to do different.
Exactly. So I just want to, we've mainly focused on the eclipse necessarily because it's so big, you know. And I have to say, where are we? August the 3rd. Between now, the eclipse is a week away. It's this end next week is going to be crazy. I've described it as I used one of the terms from the big fire that's happening in California at the moment. They came up with a new thing called fire nado because it's like a tornado of fire. That's how it kind of feels to me. It's kind of blowing me away, in both a good way and less good way, because my daughter had her bad car accident where she's not hurt, but it was big. My heart sank when I saw her car, but she's fine, to listeners. Yes. But it's that kind of energy, people are having accidents. I've seen a lot of other accidents. I've seen people with black eyes and all kinds of stuff, because Aries is very much the head as well, and we've got Mars and ruling Aries, so there's a lot of kind of head things going on. But after the eclipse, I will say, it does start to calm down. We will do another podcast for the full moon in Pisces on August the 26th. But before then, Mercury, the eclipse happens with 7 retrogrades, but Mercury turns direct on August the 18th or 19th, depending where in the world you are. And that's at another 11 degrees Leo. And we do have the final of 3 Jupiter-Neptune trines. Oh, excuse me. Happening at 15 Scorpio and Pisces. And I think after the 18th and 19th, with Mercury turning direct and Jupiter and Neptune bringing this fabulous kind of watery faith and trust energy, I think things will start to really simmer down, cool down a little bit, and move forward. But between now and then, really, it is kind of crazy.
Yeah, we're in this space where we're in a battle for freeing ourselves, freeing our ideas. And it's true, once Mercury settles down, we'll be in a more focused place. The truth is, once we take root in who we are, which is what this is all about, we are more confident when we're out in the world. So we're getting shocks and all these things happening, whether it's something fiery happening or accidental or even disease-prone something, or shocking information. Once we get past this idea of rooting ourselves in a new place, we will feel that confidence to go, I wasn't expecting this, but I know I have the courage and the ability to walk through this.
Yeah.
And we'll be in a much clearer, a sharper intellect, a more open-hearted way of dealing with things. So instead of going into panic, we're going to go into openness.
So, and I would suggest, if for any listeners that are kind of experiencing a little or finding it hard times right now, that to drop into your heart, do heart opening meditations, do anything, check in with your heart and see what really matters to your heart. Because a lot of this is just outside stuff, it's like, my daughter's okay. That's all that matters. The accident was pretty scary, but it's over. It's done. We could sit here forever going, oh my God, she had an accident. And it's like, oh, but she's fine. She's recovering. And, obviously my heart is with my kids. But for anybody else that's having a hard time, drop into what really matters for you and to what brings you joy, and all the outer stuff, it'll pass, it'll go.
Yes, great advice. I also want to add is that getting more connected to your feelings, because there's a lot of emotion. As we're becoming more present in our bodies, we're feeling our emotions instead of pushing them down. So becoming more, I think I read somewhere somebody was saying, becoming friendly with your emotions, like building that connection, like, oh, I'm upset, I'm mad, I'm being okay with it, instead of like, oh, I don't want to feel my feelings, let me eat something, let me get angry with someone else. It's like recognizing, what do I need? And that emotion. And I think in those terms, even talking about like what your daughter experienced and you did, Louise, is what does your daughter need at that moment? A hug, an open heart, it's okay, we're going to figure it out. Going and saying, well, we're panicked about this, but let's just look at the facts, right? You know, and if the worst case happens, we will deal with it. We'll deal with it, you know, the best way we can, with that open heart, opening and recognizing our right to be upset when things happen. It's okay. We don't want to nurse that kind of victimhood. We want to go, oh, I'm having a moment of experiencing these emotions. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Let me just sit with this and feed myself love, or whatever it is that you do to feel more connected.
And I did that, after, you know, and it is necessary. You know, it's not like I went, oh, she's had an accident and she's fine, it's okay.
Are you there? I can't hear you.
Yes, I was still talking. It's still recording. I was just saying that the night after the accident, you know, I barely slept, and I did allow myself to feel, you know, it was fear of, you know, losing a kid, all that kind of stuff, even though she was okay. But I allowed myself to sit with those feelings and then focus on what really matters, and lots of hugs and all that kind of stuff. So great advice, Jen. Absolutely. And I hope some other people are listening who I've noticed going through some hard times too. Can you not hear me still, Jen? I don't know whether Jen's gone again. I think she may be coming back. So in the meantime, hello, you're back.
I'm back.
I think it was your connection was dipping out why you couldn't hear me, but I was just agreeing with you, basically. That's all you've missed. So great. That was great advice. So unless you have anything more to say about the energies, we've probably podcasted on for quite a while here. So
yes, I did get the Sabian symbol.
Oh, yes.
The 19, Leo 19. A houseboat party crowded with revelers. The water reflects its light. And I think that's a really interesting expression, houseboat party, which means we really have the choice of enjoying this place and seeing the light and being able to choose.
And the kind of message of it at the end of it was freedom from social rigidity, right? So
something like that, right?
Exactly what we've been talking about.
I know, right? That totally ties in. It's crazy.
Yes. It really does. I know. They always do. Everything always ties in. The numbers, everything. So do you want to tell everybody how they can find you?
Sure. So they can find me. It's Jen Duchenne all over the place, jenduchenne.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and I have a group on Facebook, the Light Club of the Woo-Woo Weirdos of the World. And like I say, search me, Jen Duchenne.
Cool. And for me, it's the same, really, my name everywhere. So louiseeddington.com. I have a Facebook group called the Planetary Magic Cafe. That is, I don't do a huge amount in there, but I share all my writings in there and things, and some other fun stuff now and again. I also have a Patreon, Louise Eddington on Patreon, if anybody's interested, because I write daily. So if anybody wants to look at my writings daily, they can find them there. But other than that, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. We have a full moon at Pisces, at 3 degrees of Pisces. And that's going to have a whole different energy to it. So come back and meet and listen to us then. So for now, it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Till next time.